James Garner was born James Scott Bumgar on April 7, 1928, in Norman, Oklahoma. Far from the glitz and comfort of Hollywood, his childhood was shaped by hardship during the Great Depression, including the early loss of his mother and a difficult relationship with his stepmother. These experiences instilled in him a self-reliance and emotional restraint that would later define both his life and screen presence. Garner left high school early and joined the U.S. Merchant Marine near the end of World War II, followed by service in the U.S. Army during the Korean War, where he earned 2 Purple Hearts. Combat left a lasting mark on him, not just physically, but emotionally, reinforcing his dislike for pretense and ego. He rarely spoke romantically about war, instead emphasizing discipline, teamwork, and survival. These values became central to how he approached acting, relationships, and life itself. Giving his performances a grounded authenticity audiences instinctively trusted. From accidental actor to television trailblazer, Garner's path into acting was never carefully planned. After dabbling in modeling and appearing in commercials, he was encouraged to pursue acting more seriously and studied briefly at the Pasadena Playhouse. His breakthrough came in 1957 with the television western Maverick, where he played Brett Maverick, a charming gambler who relied on wit rather than violence. At a time when Western heroes were rigid and stoic, Garner brought humor, warmth, and humanity to the genre, reshaping audience expectations. The role made him an overnight star and established his signature style: relaxed, clever, and quietly confident. However, behind the scenes, tensions with Warner Brothers over workload and contract issues led him to leave the series. Rather than damaging his career, the move demonstrated his unwillingness to be exploited, a recurring theme throughout his life. Garner's Maverick wasn't just a character, it was a reflection of his belief that intelligence and decency were stronger than brute force, Hollywood success without Hollywood pretension. Transitioning seamlessly into film, Garner proved his versatility throughout the 1960s and 1970s. He appeared in The Great Escape, the Americanization of Emily, Grand Prix, and Support Your Local Sheriff, balancing drama, romance, and comedy with effortless ease. Unlike many leading men of the era, Garner avoided exaggerated heroics, choosing instead to play capable, believable men. His performances felt lived in, shaped by real experience rather than theatrical bravado. Despite his growing fame, Garner resisted Hollywood excess, preferring fairness over fame and professionalism over politics. He often clashed with studios when he felt actors were being mistreated, even suing Warner Brothers and winning, a rare act at the time. This reputation made him respected, though not always beloved by executives. Garner wasn't chasing stardom, he was chasing sustainability. His goal was simple: do good work, treat people fairly, and go home with his integrity intact. Jim Rockford and the Everyman Hero. In 1974, Garner took on what would become his most iconic role, private investigator Jim Rockford in the Rockford Files. Rockford was flawed, weary, and deeply human, a former ex-con scraping by rather than a glamorous detective. Garner infused the role with dry humor and emotional honesty, making Rockford one of television's most relatable characters. The show's success was undeniable, earning critical acclaim and an Emmy Award for Garner in 1977. Yet the role came at a cost. Garner performed many of his own stunts despite suffering from chronic knee and back pain, worsening his physical condition. The demanding schedule and studio pressure eventually became overwhelming. By the late 1970s, his health and spirit were strained, leading him to step away from the show. His decision wasn't dramatic or public, it was practical. Garner knew when to walk away, valuing longevity and well-being over short-term success. A private man in a public industry. Despite his fame, James Garner guarded his private life fiercely. He avoided Hollywood parties, interviews filled with gossip and self-promotion. Colleagues frequently described him as approachable and respectful, treating crew members with the same courtesy as co-stars. Garner believed character was revealed not by fame but by behavior. He disliked arrogance, entitlement, and unnecessary competition, values shaped by his military service and upbringing. While he admired talent, he had little patience for those who disrupted collaboration or disrespected others. Over the years, he occasionally voiced disappointment with certain industry personalities, but his criticisms were rarely personal attacks. Instead, They reflected frustration with ego and unprofessionalism. Garner believed acting was a shared effort, not a battlefield for dominance. In an industry often fueled by insecurity, he remained refreshingly steady, more interested in the work than the applause that followed it. Marriage, loyalty, and quiet devotion. Garner's greatest pride was not his career, but his marriage to Lois Clark. The two met in 1956 and married just 16 days later, beginning a partnership that would last nearly 58 years. Their relationship was built on humor, patience, and mutual respect rather than glamour. Lois brought a daughter, Kimberly, from a previous marriage, whom Garner embraced wholeheartedly. Together, they later welcomed their daughter, Greta, who would go on to become an author and advocate. Though Garner's career demanded long absences, he remained deeply committed to his family. Their marriage faced challenges, including 2 separations caused largely by career stress and health issues, but never a loss of devotion. Garner often credited Lois as his anchor, someone who kept him grounded when Hollywood pressures mounted. Their reunion in the early 1980s was quiet and personal, reflecting a love rooted in understanding rather than spectacle. Later, career and enduring grace. As he aged, Garner transitioned into supporting roles that showcased his emotional depth. Films like Murphy's Romance, which earned him an Academy Award nomination, and later The Notebook, introduced him to new generations of fans. His performances in these years were tender, reflective, and deeply human. Garner aged on screen the same way he lived, honestly and without pretense. Even as health issues slowed him down, he remained gracious and self-aware, never clinging to past fame. He returned occasionally to television and film, not out of necessity, but because he genuinely loved the craft. His presence carried weight, not because of volume, but because of authenticity. Garner never reinvented himself for relevance. Relevance followed him naturally because audiences trusted him. In an industry obsessed with reinvention, his consistency became his greatest strength. Legacy of integrity and respect. James Garner passed away on July 19, 2014, at the age of 86, leaving behind a legacy defined not just by iconic roles, but by character. Less than a month later, he would have celebrated his 58th wedding anniversary with Lois, who survived him by 7 years. His legacy isn't one of scandal or excess, but of professionalism, loyalty, and quiet courage. Garner believes success meant treating people well, doing honest work, and knowing when to step back. He never claimed perfection, only accountability. In a town built on illusion, he remained real. His life reminds us that strength doesn't need to shout, and integrity doesn't need applause. James Garner wasn't just a star who endured, he was a man who lived by his values, and that may be his most enduring role of all.